here's Brody Brazil.
I feel like stats in baseball have a couple primary purposes. Number one is to validate what you might see, like to back up the eye test. If something feels a certain way, there might be a stat to tell you if you're right or wrong. Stats are also important for those actually inside the game making decisions on what lineup to put out there, what pitcher to have against a certain batter, different scenarios like that. I also feel like stats are interesting because they can be a conversation starter. And that's the topic of this video, some baseball stats I've found from this Brooks Gate account on Twitter/X, whatever we're calling it. They only joined in August of 2023, like late last baseball season, and I've been following for a while. They've been pumping out some very compelling baseball content and some stats that I think you really need. For example, how about years in a row with a winning record? And this is how all of their stats are depicted graphically, visually, so you can simply understand it. 31 years in a row for the Yankees? See, that's not even something that I realized until now. I know they've had good teams. I know they've been to the postseason so many times, not every year, but 31 straight years of a winning record. And there's a huge drop-off after 31. It goes down to 13, which is still impressive, but even after that, we're almost cut in half again. The Rays in Atlanta have been very successful in recent times, 6 years in a row with winning records. The Jays after that, and then you get into a bunch of other teams that have not sustained at least 500 success over 4 seasons or greater. How about all the teams at 0 which had losing records last year? That's an interesting stat. Again, something that can start a conversation. I don't know that any team or person is going to make a decision on this, but it's definitely a conversation starter. How about this? The MLB primary road uniforms. How many teams actually wear gray? Well, most of them. Then there's 2 slight modifications, brown plus pinstripes, that's the Padres, and gray plus pinstripes, that's the Minnesota Twins. 2 teams, did you know, wear a blue primary road uniform. And that's the thing about maybe a stat like this, an infographic like this. It's a conversation starter with friends. Hey, I bet you can't tell me the 2 teams that don't wear any color gray on their road jersey. Go. I know it. Now you do too. It's Seattle and the Rays. You've seen it here on my YouTube. You've seen it on this Twitter account. It's just very cool, right? That some of these stats can help us think differently about baseball. Player seasons with 170-plus innings pitched from 2021 through 2023. Essentially, how many pitchers did each of these teams have that went 170 or more innings? Obviously, we're talking about the starting rotation. How about Seattle and the Blue Jays? 7 different pitchers or 7 different times. I would imagine some of them were the same pitcher, maybe over and over and over. But a team like the Angels, they've had no pitchers get to 170 innings since 2021. You can kind of see the middle of the pack there, 2, 3, and 4, but it just does not happen much anymore. And coming from the days of when I was growing up and some of the people I work with, like Dave Stewart, were pitching, 200 innings was kind of the threshold. Now it's 170, and even that is difficult to meet or exceed for a lot of Major League Baseball starters. I don't know if this one is so much in the trivia sense, like you could use it on one of your friends, but it certainly is interesting to comprehend and digest. Okay, here's a really relevant one. Since we're all watching spring training, what's a good indicator of spring training success versus how it might translate into a regular season? Here's what the last 10 MLB MVPs did in their spring training. So obviously you've got the last 5 years, you've got the American and National League MVPs. What did they do? Shohei last year hit .455. Granted, it was only 11 at-bats. He went 5 for 11. There's his OPS. Didn't even hit a homer. Ronald Acuna Jr. hit .313. He had 32 ABs. That's a pretty full spring. Judge and Goldschmidt, Ohtani again, and Bryce Harper, Abreu and Freddie Freeman, Trout and Cody Bellinger. Kind of nice to see that there's been a bunch of different names here as MVP winners over the last couple years in the different leagues. Obviously, Ohtani there twice. But it's interesting to see that translating spring training into a regular season, there's something to it. Like, nobody had a terrible spring. Maybe Cody Bellinger in 2019 was 12 for 53. That's 226, but he did hit 4 dingers. Abreu hit 257 in 2020, but again, that was a totally different spring training. Remember, that stopped, and then there was a shortened season, so I don't know how much I can take from the 2020 season. Yeah, but everybody else had a pretty good spring. So we'll let you know, generally speaking, if you're trying to predict a most valuable player for the American or National League, they're going to at least do something or show you something during spring training. All right, how about the longest win streak for each big league team since 2020? Remember what the Cardinals did in late 2021? They went on that 17-game stretch in a row, all wins. Atlanta's up there. Seattle's up there, right, when they made the playoffs in 2022. The Yankees, how about the A's in 2021? After they kind of struggled a little bit out of the gate, they went on that tear. Now, that was their old version of the team before they kind of turned it over, sold everybody off. But you can see that some teams, look at the bottom of this list. Pittsburgh, Arizona, who was in the World Series last year, they had their longest win streak of the last couple of years. Last year, 6 in a row. That's it. Colorado down there, the Washington Nationals down there at 5 games apiece. Where's the Texas Rangers? Where's Houston? There I see Houston at 11 in a row. Texas at 8. It just goes to show you that even some of the best teams that win it all, they don't rack off 12, 13, 14, or 17-game win streaks. Those are just things that happen in the regular season that don't necessarily dictate teams that have recently won a World Series. How much time would it have taken to watch every MLB game in 2023? So again, this is not like a stat for a manager, a big league GM, anything like that. Nobody's going to have a better batting average because of this, but it's just interesting. It really is. Arizona, last season, they played 18.34 days of the regular season and then 2.2 days of postseason games. That's 20 total days, 13 hours flat and no minutes. The Kansas City Royals were the most efficient team. If you watched all their games back-to-back, 17 days, 18 hours, and 36 minutes. Major League Baseball in total, 273 days worth. If you want to watch the playoffs, if you started on the 1st of January, it would take you 278 days, 22 hours, and 36 minutes back-to-back to back-to-back. Basically most of a year. So this just goes to show which teams play quicker games than others, but man, this is just an interesting thing to digest. For example, ask one of your friends, hey, if you wanted to watch, you're an Orioles fan, if you wanted to watch every Baltimore baseball game this year, how long do you think it would take? I know, or last year, 19 days, 4 hours, and 36 minutes. But did you know that? Again, a total conversation starter coming from this account. How many times did each MLB team start their most common lineup last season? Now, I think this speaks to the Braves and consistency and success. They were able to run out the same lineup there, their best lineup out there, 21 times last year. And again, the Dodgers, very consistent too at 13 times. After that, it's kind of a blender. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, and 2. So nobody did it once, and that was it. Obviously, that may not be their best lineup or their most common lineup. But you can see how many teams only had the same lineup 2, 3, 4, or even 5 times. Out of 162 games, they were not able to duplicate the same lineup or their most common lineup that many times. It's a wide discrepancy, right? Like most teams are in the single digits. And then there's the Dodgers. And then there's Atlanta. And maybe health has something to do with this. I'm sure strategy has mostly to do with this, platoon situations and just trying to constantly tinker with things. There's a team like Atlanta. 21 times out of 162, they were able to utilize their most common lineup. Okay. How many lighthouses are within 25 miles of every MLB stadium? Why? Who comes up with this? And where are we getting this stuff? Now, I know that the data here is from lighthousefriends.com. Wherever Brooksgate had the idea for this, I don't know. And maybe there's some chat GPT as part of these questions and finding out some of this information. Like, where would you find out some of this stuff? But the Mets lead baseball, and obviously the Yankees are close by there on the shore of the Atlantic Ocean, 25 and 24 lighthouses. Then you get to the Bay Area, where the Giants and the A's share a common ground. They're only a couple miles apart, ballpark-wise, as the crow flies. 13 lighthouses here in Northern California. Back out in Boston, there's 12. Now, this is an interesting one. Chicago, in terms of the White Sox, not the Cubs, the White Sox have 11 lighthouses, 25 miles within guaranteed rate field. So do the Orioles, but the Cubs have one fewer. Anyway, we could go on and on. There's a lot of teams that have no lighthouses within 25 miles. And obviously, they're mostly landlocked or in the Midwest. The Royals, Cardinals, Rangers, Pirates, Diamondbacks, Braves, Reds, and Twins. Sorry, Lighthouse fans, nothing for you there. Games where a team struck out in over half their at-bats across the last 2 seasons, right? So we're talking about a lot of strikeouts over 2 baseball seasons, and look at the Oakland A's. That's a lot of times to have over half your at-bats be strikeouts. 10 different times that's happened, which is interesting that it's never happened to the Diamondbacks, to the Guardians, or to the Washington Nationals. 3 seems like kind of the average, the median in there. 5 and 6 show up, 7 shows up, but 10 shows up a lot differently for the Oakland A's. That's a lot of strikeouts. And again, that's a conversation starter. Here's another way to look at the baseball payroll situation. MLB payrolls at the end of last season versus currently, and we're only talking about the change in dollar amount. Like the Dodgers, yeah, they're spending a ton this year. Well, the deferred money, I suppose, being part of that, but $67 million as it goes from one year to the next is really the only established change. Houston up 39. Chicago up 34. So there is a huge difference even with the deferred money and where the Dodgers are at versus everybody else. There's a team like the Padres, which is minus $95 million. The Angels are down $41 million. There's Shohei Ohtani. The Twins are down $31 million. The Mets have obviously approached things differently, and they spent $346 last year. But you can see how a lot of teams spent only a little bit more. The Pirates, the Cardinals, the Texas Rangers, but of course they were already at $214. It says here the Oakland A's have $0 of a change. The Phillies are also in that category. Cleveland is down $1 million. Seattle's down $4 million. Miami's down $8 million. So again, just an interesting perspective. We hear about all the free agent signings and the money and the dollar amounts that are committed. Here's their actual budget from last year to this year as we head into opening day. The power ranking of the MLB animal teams by who would win in a fight. This one is not just a conversation starter. This is one for you having an adult beverage with somebody else. This is perfect for bar chatter. A tiger would beat a marlin, who would beat a ray, who would beat a cub. Is that right? A cub? Who would beat a blue jay, who would beat a cardinal. So I guess a blue jay is, probably a little bit better suited than a cardinal. Cardinal could take care of a diamondback. Who could take care of an oriole? Why is the oriole the weak bird in all of this? Are we missing anybody here? Is this wrong? Is this right? You let me know in the comment section below. Again, and this may not be a stat. This may be more informational than anything else, but it certainly is interesting. I'll say that. Okay, how about this one? Not the day and night. The hot versus cold splits, temperature-wise, for Fernando Tatis Jr. and Seth Sarge Brown of the Oakland A's. When it's colder than 70 degrees, Fernando Tatis Jr. hits above 300. When it's warmer than 70 degrees, he hits like 60 points less, 247, 50-something points less. That's crazy. And look at Seth Brown, a 190 average when it's cooler and a 270 average when it's warmer. And the plate appearances for Brownie are pretty close here, 685 to 630, cold versus hot. Look at the amount of homers, 21 to 37. Look at the same thing for Fernando Tatis Jr. Now, he does have a lot more under 70-degree at-bats, but he also has a lot more under 70-degree homers. Like, where do you even find this stuff? But this one, to me, paints such a clear picture. Now I know something specifically, and I cover Seth Brown, right? Doing A's pre- and post-game shows, I was aware about the day and night split. That's why I might have said that kind of mistakenly getting into this graphic. I knew there was a day and night thing for him, but if we really divide it by temperature, oh my goodness, that's where you can see it's plain as day. And the same thing for Fernando Tatis Jr. Again, that one's informational. You might be able to use that, but it's definitely also a conversation starter. Here's another one. 2024 MLB schedule, the national TV games by team. So this is the one when you want to say, well, it's not fair. Those guys are always on Sunday Night Baseball or the Fox game or the FS1 game or TBS. Well, the Yankees are going to be on 15 total times. They lead the league. Atlanta, Chicago, the Dodgers are right behind them. Houston, the Rangers, and the Phillies are right behind them. And the Cardinals are also at 10 times. How about this? The Baltimore Orioles this year and the Cincinnati Reds, two very young and fun teams, are going to be on national TV the same amount of times as the Red Sox. Bet you didn't see that one coming. And again, a total conversation starter here. 3 teams won't have any national games, but that's kind of a trick. Toronto has its own broadcast situation and schedule in Canada, so they won't be on stateside nationally, but neither will the A's or the Washington Nationals. The Nationals have no national TV games this season, just like the Oakland A's. They do this schedule on purpose. It's very, it's driven by intent. And this is the way they've laid it out. So you can kind of see which teams are favored here for the national audience and which ones are absolutely not. MLB win percentage when leading after 6 innings last season. These are the teams that sealed the deal, brought it home. Look at the Red Sox. Didn't have the best season, but when they were leading after 6, they got it done as efficiently as anybody else. Oh my gosh, look where the Rockies are at. A 670 win percentage when leading after 6? Now, the A's and White Sox, no surprise, bullpen situation, rougher team, inability to score, come back again and score late runs, totally get it. You can see in Cleveland also there, it's kind of the separation of those 4 teams and then everybody else. And then you get to that league average line there between 850 and 870, 860 probably. And then everybody who's better than average in terms of win leading after 6 and going on to actually win the game. Now, this one's informational. Like, it really helps you understand, at least last year, how things went. It's also a fun conversation starter. Like, if you're a Red Sox fan, well, we didn't have the best year, but when we were leading after 6, the game was pretty much in the bag. Same thing really for the Orioles, for the Dodgers, and for the Houston Astros. And I think this is the last one here, but how about pitches thrown over 100 miles an hour in the statcast era? Now, you're not only getting some teams as part of this mix, but you're getting certain individuals mixed into entire teams. I mean, it's amazing to see that some guys throw pitches greater than 100 miles an hour as much as some other teams do. Like Camilo Doval for San Francisco. You're seeing him on the far right column there. He's thrown 387 pitches over 100 miles an hour during his time with the Giants. The Oakland A's, like right across the bay, are right behind him, about 15, 18. I'm not going to do the quick math. About 20, right? Is that right? 50 to 80? No, about 30. About 30 fewer 100 mile an hour pitches than one pitcher, Camilo Doval. The Oakland A's as a team have that many and have that many fewer than one individual. Again, right, this is an interesting way to look at it. And look at Chapman there, leading the pack, leading the Cardinals even by more than 1,000. That is unreal. 3,564 pitches for Chapman over 100 miles an hour. And then look at everybody else. Even look at Justin Verlander, Garrett Cole just barely scratching this list. But still, like, this is informational. It helps you understand the game better. But yeah, this one is definitely a conversation starter. I know I keep saying that, but isn't that the fun of baseball? To talk about it with your friends and to bring up these things and be more knowledgeable in the conversation. Anyway, I just thought Brooksgate was as an account that you might want to follow. You might want to Seek this out on your own. I hope that they keep updating things like this throughout the course of the 2024 season. I know they're new. I know they're growing in terms of followers, but I'm one, and I think after this, maybe you'll probably be one too. And hopefully they don't mind. I'm going to share some more of these interesting stats and ways to look at the game throughout the season. Hey, you made it here to the end of the video. You know I really appreciate that. Thumbs up down below. That'll greatly help me in this channel. And by the way, if you've never seen me or any of this stuff before, you're new to the channel, that's awesome. I'm glad you found me. Make sure, though, before you go, you hit that subscribe button so I can definitely see you back here next time.